My sister came home for the weekend and she usually enjoys it more than my mom when I cook her Korean food, so I decided to cook my version of japchae for the three of us for her last lunch home before she's off again. I say my version of japchae because the first time I made it I tried following a recipe from the My Korean Kitchen website, but due to my family's dietary preferences and to some ingredients that are hard to find here or just not always in season, I gradually changed the recipe so much it would be hard to recognize. First of all, I used some puntarelle, a type of Italian chicory, that we already had cooked instead of spinach, because it was more convenient this time and, since it was just boiled, I seasoned it as usual with salt, garlic and sesame oil and set it aside at the bowl I would then use to put everything together. Then I started preparing some of the vegetables. I cut a zucchini, a carrot and 1.5 onions, because they were quite small and I had to throw away half of one because it had gone bad. And set them all aside for when it would come the time to cook them. Then it was time to prepare the mushroom and noodles marinade by combining a couple of tablespoons of soy sauce, some brown sugar and honey, I'd guess about half a tablespoon each, but I was using a spoon more not to make a mess than to measure, some sesame oil that I completely eyeballed and a few grinds of black pepper and giving it a good mix. I used half of the mixture to coat the mushrooms I cut into thin strips before setting them aside to marinate until I would cook them, and the other half will come in handy when the noodles are cooked. Finally, it was time to start cooking. I cooked the egg I would use as a garnish first so it would fully set by the time I was done, and then I started cooking the vegetables one after the other, adding some oil in between when needed, starting with the onion and then moving on to the carrots and zucchini that I stir-fried together because I couldn't be bothered to do them separately, and lastly the mushrooms, that in the meantime had marinated for long enough. By the time I was done the water for the noodles had started to boil, so I dropped the glass noodles in and cooked them for just under what it said on the package while occasionally stirring them. I used mung bean glass noodles because that's what I had at home, but rice noodles are more commonly used. While the noodles were boiling I cut the egg into thin strips and cubed the marinated tofu I used instead of meat since my mom doesn't like to eat meat, and as soon as the noodles were done I drained them and transferred them into the wok to stir fry for a bit before adding the other half of the marinade I did earlier. Now that everything was ready, I mixed the noodles together with everything else in the large bowl where I had been setting aside all the other ingredients over time and enjoyed them after garnishing them with sesame seeds and the egg strips. For once I actually happened to have green onions at home, but I completely forgot about them. Oh well, it'll be for the next time. For now, get your chopsticks ready, because